Labas.
In 2015, we commemorated the 100-year anniversary of acquiring the building, and today we celebrate the 100 years of finally opening the Lithuanian Hall.
Oldest son would inherit the land. They would hope to marry off the girls to other farmers that had land, and they would pool their money to send the first oldest male after the first son to the United States. He would come, get a job, get settled, and then he would help bring over his next brother and his next brother and his next brother, and then if there were any girls left, they would bring them over. But when they came to the United States, or Baltimore particularly, they came by boat from Germany. They arrived here at Locust Point, got off the boat, and came right into Baltimore. They didn't go into Ellis Island, some did, but those usually went to Pennsylvania and to the coal mines. Some came down to Baltimore later because the coal mine work was so bad. But those that came into Baltimore generally lived in, lack of a better word, boarding houses, where there might be 3 or 4 single men living in the same place. They initially found labor work, but by 1880, there was a sufficient number of Lithuanians to come and actually form their own neighborhoods. The males all thought they were going to make fortunes and go back to Lithuania. Well, that didn't work out. There were no Lithuanian priests, so we had to recruit our own Lithuanian priests, and they had to come from the old country initially. And when that priest came, where are you going to have them held Mass? You had to get a church. So they formed, for lack of a better word, clubs in Lithuania. It would be a drugia, or society. they would, initially, the first one was St. John the Baptist Society, which was formed for the purpose of buying and establishing a Lithuanian Catholic Church in Baltimore. That was formed in 1885. First places they started holding masses at St. Peter's, the Lithuanians and Poles all in that one church. And it worked for a while, and the first church they acquired was a Jewish synagogue that the Jews had outgrown, and the Lithuanians bought it. It was perfect for them initially. It had a small hall, and the hall was used for all kind of activities. I remember we had single ladies and single men. They had to have a place to meet, and you didn't go to bars in those days, and there was no computers or anything for dating services. You had to meet in person, and they were usually church events. They had a lot of picnics in the summer, and little dances and things like that in a church. Terrible work conditions. There was no Social Security benefits whatsoever. So if you had a job and you got fired, you starved unless you got another job. You got sick, there was no hospitalization, you died. So they formed these drogias that were, lack of a better word, little insurance companies. And if you had one of the situations where you're unemployed, got sick, died, they would handle a lot of the benefits to your widow, your orphans, and make sure you got a good burial. The drogias were the main catalyst for the growth of the community, the treasury for virtually everything. If you want to set up a business, a grocery store or bar, those drogias pulled their money and gave loans out. In the 1880s, 1900s was a birth of the national revival, Lithuanian national revival in the old country, and it spread here to the United States. And the main person in the United States leading the national revival was Jonas Slupas. He formed many drogias, and the first secular drogia was the Lithuanian Scientific Society. They published books here. Newspapers, even had a Lithuanian newspaper in Baltimore. And he tried to help establish a Lithuanian Catholic national church. But the Lithuanian attempt failed pretty quickly. In Baltimore, it only lasted for about 2 or 3 years. But when the church went under, the main drogia nationalist then was the Kęstutis Society. And they bought that church and they converted it to a hall. They put a stage in there and they had all kind of activities. The rentals the same way we operate now. They gave plays, they gave dances, they rented property, the halls for other events, weddings and funerals, and anything we did today, they did in that hall, which was christened the Lithuanian Central Hall. And the community was growing from 1880 to about 1902, that 20-year period. It grew to about 5,000 people. So you needed a bigger place to have a meeting. The Kęstutis Society helped fund the purchase of the building that the hall is right now, bought by the Lithuanian community in 1914, largely with the funds that paid from the first Lithuanian Hall, the Central Hall, over on Berry Street. A couple other drogias kicked in some money, and that was enough to acquire the property, but not enough to do the conversion, the reconstruction. So then they started selling shares to the community. This was going to be a private club, which it is today. You had to buy one share, $25. Doesn't sound like much today, but $25 back in those days is probably, $2,000 to $3,000 to us today. The hall had its grand opening in 1921, The major part of the festivities was naturally a dedication of the building and a gala dance, and it was the Lithuanian Opera Plenai that was presented by the Lithuanian Athletic Club. Actually, the opening day lasted probably 6 weeks. There were 31 drogias. Each drogia wanted to have their opening day. The Lithuanians were not recognized by the United States until 1921. So one of the things that the Lithuanian Americans did, they started a petition drive. And that petition drive was also done in Baltimore. They collected, the Lithuanian Americans, not all Baltimoreans, but over 1 million signatures. And the Lithuanian Committee in 1921 presented that 1 million petition to President Harding, who shortly thereafter recognized Lithuania as a free and independent country. And so there was also Lithuania is struggling to get independence and to stay independent. Where did the money come? Who supported it? In this hall, we contributed money in savings funds for Lithuania to even exist financially before it could get on its feet. During the Soviet era and Nazi area, there were all kinds of demonstrations during the Cold War. We would picket the Russian embassies. Didn't happen had it not been for the planning done here in Lithuanian Hall. During the 1990-1991 struggle, this was the home office of the Free Lithuanian Committee. We had a little miniature Lithuanian Statue of Liberty monument. That was taken and carried to Washington, D.C. for that demonstration. And you could see it in front of the U.S. Capitol building, showing there were 700 EP families that settled in Baltimore, many of which today run the Lithuanian Hall. I am very hopeful that now we see the new waivers coming in, the third wave, and they are doing the same thing. So the DPs saved the Evergreen Hall from going under. The new waivers, I hope, will continue to Lithuanian Hall to another century. You know, we did a century already, and we got a long time to go here if everything keeps going.
Aš esu ne tik Lietuvos Lietuvių namų prezidentas, bet irgi malūnų tautinių šokių kolektyvų pirmininkas, vadovas. Ir mes anksčiau čia šokom, tai aš daug kepurių nešioju. Esu irgi Lietuvos Lietuvių festivalių komitetų pirmininkas, buvęs Lietuvių tautinių šokių institutų pirmininkas, visokių užsiėmimų čia dirbu. Ir man labai buvo smagu, kad prieš 7 metus mes šventėm 100 metų Lietuvių namų sąjungos 100 metų. Ir turėjau labai gražų balių, ir tada turėjau truputį laiko ir galvojau, žiūrėkit, laukia akmuo įrašyta 1921. Tais metais šitą salę naujai pastatė. Va, geras priežastis turėti balių. Tai va, darom vėl 100 metų. So just to repeat in English, in 2014, we celebrated 100 years of the Lithuanian Hall Association. In that time, we had a great party like this, and 7 years later, I noticed that cornerstone outside still said 1921. Well, it's 2021, so like Lithuanians really need an excuse to have a party. So yeah, let's have a 100-year anniversary party for the building.
Thanks for traveling with Trey, and I hope you enjoyed this celebration of the Lithuanian American community and the 100th year of their community's place of gathering in Baltimore. If you like this video, consider supporting the Hall with your monetary donations, as operations like these only exist because of supporters. Please also consider supporting this channel by subscribing and hitting that notification button to keep up on all my latest adventures. Kolkas drauge.